I never thought I'd hear the kind of garbage Lyla, my wife of 7 years, had just spewed at me. In a matter of seconds, it became crystal clear how little I actually mattered to her. We were at a mountain resort for her older sister Tessa's 4-day-long bachelorette extravaganza. By the way, this wasn't Tessa's first rodeo, her third marriage, in fact. I couldn't help but wonder how she managed to snag her latest fiancé. Was it her money, her charm, or some lawyerly persuasion? Knowing Tessa and her knack for strategy, I figured she probably had him sign a prenup so watertight it might as well have been medieval torture. The day before Wednesday, Lyla and I decided to hit one of the resort's public hot tubs. Earlier, Tessa had cracked a joke about the possibility of running into nude men at the tubs. I brushed it off as her usual sarcasm, but as it turns out, she wasn't kidding. Apparently, these hot tubs came with a clothing-optional policy. Sure enough, as we slid into the water, I saw 5 men lounging across from us in nothing but their birthday suits. They didn't seem remotely bothered by their exposure. They got up, dried off, and reclined in their chairs like it was no big deal. One guy, though, a tall, muscular dude with a ponytail, decided to sprawl out on the grass with one leg up, making no effort to conceal what he had. I caught Lyla staring at him, her eyes glazed over like she was miles away. That look gave me a knot in my gut. I guess this is where I should rewind and give you some backstory about us. I'm Ethan Wright, and Lyla is, or was, the love of my life. I'm 39, while she's a bit younger at 32. I used to be a cop until my career ended abruptly after I got shot several times in the line of duty. The injuries were bad enough to force me into early retirement, and walking has been tough ever since. That's how I met Lyla. She was one of the physical therapists helping me regain mobility. After leaving the police force, I took up private investigation. Thankfully, most of the work involves sitting at a desk or doing surveillance from my car, which suits my limited mobility. I had a good partner back then, a veteran detective, but he passed away from a heart attack, leaving me to work with his former boss. Lyla and I fell in love fast, got married, and for the first 5 years, I thought we had something special. But 2 years ago, things started falling apart. I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes and high cholesterol, made worse by my 2-pack-a-day smoking habit. The medications affected my performance in the bedroom, and though I tried quitting smoking, I turned into a grumpy mess. At first, Lyla seemed to understand. We worked through it, or so I thought. But slowly, she changed. The warm, supportive woman I married morphed into someone I barely recognized. Snappy, dismissive, and always critical. Despite my efforts to save our marriage, things kept getting worse. Our physical connection dwindled to almost nothing. I'd hoped this mountain getaway might rekindle the spark between us, but it became painfully obvious that our relationship was beyond saving. Watching that ponytailed guy flaunt himself in front of Lyla, I felt an eerie sense of déjà vu, though I couldn't place him. Earlier on Thursday, Lyla had said she'd be shopping with Tessa, so I decided to play a round of golf. I came back earlier than expected, cleaned up, and dressed with the hope of taking Lyla out for dinner and maybe some dancing. As I was getting ready, Lyla strolled in, wrapped in a bathrobe, her hair damp and her cheeks flushed. "I thought you were out shopping with Tessa," I said casually. "Changed my mind," she replied, plopping down on the bed. "I went to the hot tub instead." "Oh," I said, my tone neutral. "Run into any undressed men this time?" She smirked. "Oh yeah, there was this guy with a ponytail, Marco Diaz. He works out west at some film studio. You'd like him." That's when it hit me. I knew exactly who this Marco Diaz was. Sure, he worked in film, but not the kind that made it to theaters. His work belonged to a seedier genre. "So, you've gotten to know this Marco guy, huh?" I asked, keeping my voice even. "A bit," she said with a dismissive snort. "Him and some of his friends." "And? Did you enjoy yourself?" Her grin widened. "Best time I've had in years." "Was this part of your plan all along?" I asked, my stomach tightening. Her expression turned icy, her voice dripping with contempt. "Yes, it was. You have no idea, Ethan. For years, you were the only man I'd ever been with. But these last 2 years have been hell. I need someone who can actually satisfy me, Someone who isn't held back by meds or poor health. Do you even know why you're like this? It's the damn medication, I shot back. It's not my fault. It is your fault, she snapped. Years of smoking, drinking, and eating garbage, and now I'm the one paying the price. I need a real man, Ethan. Someone strong, someone who doesn't bend over backward to please me, someone who actually takes control. Her words hit me like a freight train. My head spun as I tried to make sense of what I was hearing. You're kidding, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. She wasn't done. Do you know what he did? She asked, a twisted smile on her lips. He told me to strip right there in front of everyone. And you did it? I asked, already knowing the answer. Of course I did, she said, slipping off her robe. And let me tell you, it didn't stop there. We did far more than just talk. I did, Lyla answered without a hint of shame, letting her robe slip to the floor, leaving nothing to the imagination. And did you get involved with them too? I asked, already bracing for the answer I knew was coming. She chuckled, a sound that only deepened the pit in my stomach. Involved? Oh, no, Ethan. I didn't just get involved. I had full-on lovemaking with all of them, even a trio session. I let them do whatever they wanted. Her smirk widened as she leaned in. And you know what else? What? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, anger simmering beneath my skin. They're on their way here now, she declared, her eyes gleaming with cruel satisfaction. They're coming to ravage me right here in this bed while you watch. I felt the blood drain from my face as I stood, crossing the room to grab my suitcase from the closet. What are you doing? She asked, her tone mocking. Running away like a coward? I took a deep breath, counting silently to 10 in a desperate bid to keep my temper in check. That's when I remembered what it was about Marco that had always driven me up the wall. His reputation was infamous, luring women into his orbit with a mix of charm and God knows what else, then coercing them into adult films. Once he got what he wanted, he discarded them like yesterday's trash, leaving them to pick up the pieces of their shattered lives. The authorities had tried to nail him more than once, but nothing ever stuck. If you had a shred of common sense, you'd be running too, I said evenly. But then, wisdom has never been your strong suit, has it? Enjoy yourself, Lyla. This is where it ends for us. Give my regards to Tessa. I zipped up my suitcase and started for the door. You're really leaving, she taunted, a smirk plastered across her face. Just walking out like a pathetic little man? Yes, I said, pausing at the door to look at her one last time. I'm done being your punching bag. Goodbye, Lyla. I walked out without a second glance. As I made my way down the hallway, I spotted Marco and his entourage approaching. Their laughter echoed off the walls as they strolled toward my room like they owned the place. When we crossed paths, I called out. Marco, I said, my voice loud enough to grab his attention. He turned, raising an eyebrow. What's up? I slipped off my wedding ring and tossed it to him. She's all yours if you want her. Marco caught the ring midair and grinned, slipping it into his pocket. Thanks, man, he said, chuckling. But honestly, I'm already done with her. Shaking my head, I continued to my car. I loaded my suitcase, then made a pit stop at the gas station to grab a pack of cigarettes and a six-pack of beer. For the first time in years, I didn't care about my health or the consequences. I just wanted to drown my anger and break something, anything. 3 hours later, I pulled into my driveway, half expecting a call or a desperate apology from Lyla. But my phone stayed silent. Not a single text. Figures, I muttered under my breath. After cracking open a beer, I sat on the back porch with a notepad, jotting down a list of things to take care of. Having worked countless cases of infidelity as a private investigator, I knew exactly what I was up against. The law didn't care about cheating in a no-fault divorce state, and 9 times out of 10, the husband ended up on the losing end. But not me, not this time. I called a locksmith and paid extra to have all the locks changed that same day. Then I sat back, had another beer, and made my plans. By the time I went to bed, I hoped this nightmare would just be over. But of course it wasn't. The next morning, I woke up to the same empty phone screen. No calls. No messages. Lyla had gone radio silent. I brewed a pot of coffee and called Luke Evans, a lawyer I trusted, and someone we both knew well. After laying it all out for him, he assured me he'd have divorce papers ready by Monday. "We'll serve her at work," Luke said. "Make it official. But, Ethan, don't do anything stupid. You've got me in your corner." "You don't have to worry," I told him, though I wasn't sure how much I believed it myself. "I mean it," he pressed. "Let your boss assign someone to keep an eye on her. And stay away from this mess." "Got it," I said. After hanging up, I called my boss, Ryan Hayes. "Hey, Ethan," Ryan said. "I thought you were up in the mountains with your wife. What's going on?" "Long story," I sighed. Then I filled him in on the whole debacle. "Damn," he muttered when I was done. "That's rough. Want me to send someone to tail her?" "That'd help," I said, "but make sure it's someone she doesn't know." "Consider it done," Ryan assured me. "Now take care of yourself, Ethan." I spent the rest of the day tying up loose ends, splitting our bank accounts, canceling Lyla's credit card, and opening a new account in my name. I reduced her ATM withdrawal limit just enough to keep tabs on her spending. Later, I stopped at a diner for a pastrami sandwich, realizing I had nothing else to do but wait. As I sat there, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the diner window, slouching, with a gut that hung over my belt. When I got home, I stepped on the bathroom scale. 98 kilos. No wonder Lyla had lost interest. Looking in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. The toned physique I'd once been proud of was now buried under layers of fat and neglect. She wasn't wrong about that, I muttered to myself, but she didn't have to humiliate me. If she'd loved me, she would have told me how she felt before things spiraled out of control. Standing there in that moment, I resolved to change everything. For me, not for her. Grabbing the phone book and a pack of cigarettes, I stepped out onto the back porch, flipping through the pages for nearby gyms. After jotting down a couple of options to check out, I was just about to leave when my phone buzzed. The number on the screen was unfamiliar, but I picked up anyway. "Right," I answered gruffly. "Ethan, where are you?" a woman's voice asked. I recognized it immediately, Tessa. We hadn't exchanged many words over the years, so her calling me was unexpected. "I left last night," I confirmed. "Why are you asking?" She sighed. "We were just wondering what happened." Lyla seemed really upset and said she was going to soak in the tub. She's never acted like this before. She mentioned you two had a fight, and then you left. What's going on? "Maybe you should ask her," I suggested coldly. "Is everything okay between you two?" Tessa pressed. "No, it's not," I admitted. "By the way, did you know Marco Diaz and his crew are staying at the resort?" "Of course," she said casually. "They're the entertainment for our bachelorette party. I even arranged for them to bring a film crew." I stiffened. "Why?" "Just thought it'd spice things up," she said lightly. "Why do you ask?" "Just curious," I deflected. "Did Lyla know about this?" "Yes," Tessa replied without hesitation. "To be honest, I was surprised you even showed up. This was supposed to be a girls-only weekend. But if you're both into that kind of lifestyle, it's none of my business." "So you knew what she was planning?" I asked, my voice tightening. "We all did," she admitted nonchalantly. "Why? Is there a problem?" I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay composed. "Nothing I can't handle." "Do you want me to tell Lyla to call you?" Tessa offered. "No," I said firmly. "Let her enjoy herself." "She still loves you," Tessa said, almost patronizingly. "When she's done, she'll come back to you. It's just lovemaking." "No, Tessa," I shot back, my voice edged with anger. "It's more than that. It's a heartless betrayal, and you played a part in it." "Calm down," she said dismissively. "It's just one weekend. You'll pick her up on Sunday, right?" "No," I said flatly. "She can find her own way back. And for the record, she's not welcome here anymore." Tessa gasped audibly, but I didn't care. "Goodbye, Tessa," I said before hanging up. Anger coursed through me, my hands clenching into fists. For a moment, I considered punching the wall, but instead, I redirected my fury to something productive. I headed to the gym and unleashed everything on a punching bag until my arms felt like jelly. Then I hit the showers, trying to clear my mind. As I was getting dressed, one of the trainers approached me. "Are you okay?" he asked, his tone kind but concerned. I glanced at him. Not really, but thanks for asking. I noticed you were going pretty hard on that bag, he said. I was worried you might hurt yourself. Want to talk about it? What did I have to lose? Why not? I said, taking a seat on the bench. He joined me, waiting patiently while I wrestled with my thoughts. Finally, I spilled the whole sordid story. I'm sorry to hear that, he said when I finished. I'm Eric Taylor, by the way. Ethan, I replied, shaking his hand. Ethan Wright. Well, Ethan, if you're looking to get back in shape, I can help. But I think you might need more than just weight loss. I know a great counselor who could make a difference. He handed me a business card. Grace Bennett, licensed counselor. I'll think about it, I said, pocketing the card. Eric nodded, then hesitated. I couldn't help but notice you avoid putting weight on your right leg. Is it an old injury? Yeah, I said, explaining about the shooting that ended my police career. I remember that, Eric said suddenly, his eyes lighting up. You're the cop who saved my grandmother during that bank robbery about 8 years ago, right? That was me, I confirmed. How's your grandmother? She's doing great, thanks to you, he said warmly. Eric led me to the front desk, where he enrolled me in a fitness program tailored for weight loss and strength building. He even highlighted my heroics to the staff, earning me a few pats on the back. If you ever need anything, just ask, Eric said as we wrapped up. And don't forget to call Grace. I will, I promised. Thanks, Eric. Leaving the gym, I felt a spark of hope, something I hadn't felt in ages. Back home, I scheduled an appointment with Grace for the following Tuesday, though a small part of me still hoped Lyla might reach out. She didn't. Ryan, however, gave me a call. We've got someone watching Lyla, he said. We'll update you if anything comes up. Thanks, I said, mentioning my plan to see Grace. Good move, Ryan said approvingly. Keep your focus, Ethan. I'll keep you posted. Got it, I replied. The rest of the weekend dragged. My emotions seesawed between rage and despair, but I resisted the urge to drown them in alcohol. Instead, I stayed busy, counting the hours until Monday, when everything would come to a head. At precisely 10:01 a.m., Ryan called with an update, his tone measured but serious. Lyla left with Marco and his crew earlier this morning, he began. Looks like she had quite the weekend. I exhaled sharply, trying to steady my voice. Do we know where they went? Not yet, Ryan admitted. They checked out of the resort around 9 a.m. We've got plenty of evidence from the weekend, photos, videos, transcripts. I'll forward everything to Luke, and if you want a copy for yourself, I can get that arranged. I paused, my mind racing. I'll let you know, I muttered. If she's planning to come back, I guess she'd be here around noon. That's what I'd expect too, Ryan replied. But Ethan, if she doesn't come back, you've got to be prepared for that as well. I know, I said tightly. Let me know if you hear anything else. I will, he assured me before ending the call. Taking a chance, I dialed Lyla's number. Predictably, it went straight to voicemail. Lyla, it's me, I said, my voice thick with anger and frustration. Call me back when you get this. I know you left the resort. Just call me. I hung up and immediately dialed Tessa. She picked up after the third ring, her voice light and casual, as if nothing was wrong. Hey, Ethan, you missed one hell of a party. Yeah, I gathered, I replied curtly. Looks like Lyla took off with Marco. Yep, they left this morning, she confirmed, her tone irritatingly carefree. Do you know where they went? I asked, my irritation barely masked. No clue, she replied breezily. I figured they might be heading your way, but I can't say for sure. I clenched my jaw, my patience fraying. Do you even care if she comes back? I demanded, the words spilling out before I could stop them. Hey, don't put this on me, she shot back, her tone turning defensive. Lyla's an adult. She makes her own choices. If she doesn't come back, that's not on me. Maybe you should take a look at yourself, Ethan. Her words hit me harder than I expected, but I refused to let her see it. Thanks for nothing, Tessa, I snapped before ending the call. The house felt oppressively quiet as I sat in the living room, staring at the clock. Time seemed to crawl, every minute dragging by like an eternity. Noon came and went, and there was still no sign of Lyla. By 1 p.m., frustration and worry gnawed at me in equal measure. I paced the room, checked my phone obsessively, and tried to distract myself with television, but nothing helped. I attempted to track her phone using an app, but it was no use. Either she had turned it off, or she'd removed the battery, making it untraceable. Switching to my computer, I scoured my email inbox, hoping for a message, something that would give me a clue. Nothing. The silence was deafening. By 6 p.m., anger and worry had formed a toxic mix in my chest. Had she been in an accident? Was she hurt? Or was she just off somewhere with Marco, completely indifferent to the wreckage she'd left behind? I called Ryan again, desperate for answers. She hasn't been admitted to any hospitals, he confirmed. And as far as I can tell, there's been no contact with law enforcement. She's off the radar, I muttered, running a hand through my hair. What now? We'll have to wait for her next card transaction, Ryan said. If she uses it, we'll get a location. That gave me an idea. Logging into our shared online banking portal, I scoured the recent activity. Sure enough, I found what I was looking for, a $200 ATM withdrawal made at 9:45 a.m. at the airport near the resort. It was the exact daily limit I'd set on her card the previous Friday. She's left town, I told Ryan when I called him back. Any idea where she went? He asked. Not exactly, I said, opening another browser tab to search for flights departing from that airport around 11 a.m. There were several options: Los Angeles, San Francisco, Miami, Dallas, Seattle, and Playa. Knowing Marco's connections on the West Coast, I guessed that was her likely destination. We'll know more when she uses her card again, I added. Until then, we wait, Ryan said, his frustration mirroring my own. Unless there's something in the footage. Want to come over and go through it? I hesitated for a moment, the thought of watching the footage filling me with dread. But what choice did I have? I'll be there, I said finally. There has to be something we're missing. Fair warning, he said grimly. It's not easy to watch. I don't care, I replied. I need answers. The drive to Ryan's house felt interminable, even though I kept to the speed limit. When I arrived, his wife Donna greeted me at the door with her usual warmth. Can I get you something to drink? She offered. Coffee? Beer? Coffee, please, I said, forcing a tight smile. I need to stay sharp. She nodded and gestured toward Ryan's office. He's waiting for you. Ryan handed me a stack of transcripts when I walked in. Here, he said. Let's see what we can find. The transcripts were worse than I'd imagined. Lyla's words leapt off the page, pleading for more attention, mocking me, and reveling in her actions. Marco's crew joined in with crude remarks, their laughter taunting me from the paper. What a joke, Marco sneered in one clip. Yeah, Lyla replied. He'll never touch me again. He even gave me his ring before he left. The laughter that followed was sickening. Then Lyla added, maybe I'll piss on him for old time's sake. I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms. How had I ever loved this woman? The person in these transcripts was a stranger, a cruel, vindictive stranger. Good riddance, I thought bitterly. Hours passed as we combed through the files, our eyes scanning every word, every frame of footage. Just as I was about to give up hope, Ryan spoke up. Wait, here, he said, his tone sharp. Late Saturday night, around 11:45 p.m. What did you find? I asked, leaning in, hope sparking for the first time in hours. Here, read this. Let me know your thoughts, Ryan said, handing me a transcript. I took it, reading a few lines before the indicated timestamp to better understand the context. Man, boss, she's the best we've had in a long time, one of Marco's accomplices remarked. We could rake in a ton of cash with this chick's assets, added another. You really think so? Marco asked, his tone casual. Oh, absolutely, the accomplice chimed in. She's got the looks and the enthusiasm. What do you say? Marco asked Lyla directly. Ready to make some serious dough? I'm not some damn floozy, Lyla shot back, her tone defiant. The room erupted into laughter. No, sweetheart, Marco clarified, still grinning. I'm talking about movies, online videos. With your body in that face, all you need to do is what you're already doing. Just in front of the camera. It's natural for you. I've been brainstorming a whole new series of humiliation and betrayed man movies, and you'd be perfect for it, he added. When can I start? Lyla asked, her tone suddenly enthusiastic. We could head out right after the party if you're up for it, Marco suggested. I'll set you up in a nice place in Los Angeles. You'll work exclusively for me. Of course, I'll take a cut, but you'll make a fortune once we start churning out videos. Can I get more of that stuff you gave me earlier? Lyla asked, her voice betraying her dependence. And maybe some of those euphoria pills? Whatever you want, babe, Marco assured her. The sky's the limit. So, I get all the lovemaking I want, get paid, and humiliate losers like Ethan? She questioned, laughing. That's the idea, Marco confirmed. You can count me in, Lyla said, sealing the deal. What about your pathetic husband? One of Marco's accomplices asked. Are you going to tell him? Screw him, Lyla snapped. He's ancient history. He'll never lay eyes on me again. When do we leave? She asked. First thing tomorrow, Marco replied. We'll head to the airport and be on the first flight west. Hell yeah, Lyla exclaimed. Let's do it. I felt my stomach churn as I handed the transcript back to Ryan. Do we have this on video? I asked, already dreading the answer. Yep, Ryan said. Let me grab the disc and fire it up. He slid the disc into his computer and pulled up the timestamp. Before hitting play, he turned to me. You ready for this? Let's just get it over with, I replied, bracing myself. Ryan hit play, and the scene unfolded on the screen. Through the window of Lyla's room, I saw her lying undressed on the bed with Marco and his associates. One of them held a camera, and a tray with several shots of white powder sat on a nearby table. Her erratic behavior confirmed my suspicion that she was under the influence of something heavy. As the video progressed, the conversation from the transcript played out almost word for word. After they talked, they dove straight into group lovemaking. I could feel my stomach turn as I watched. That's enough, I muttered, my voice thick with disgust. Turn it off. Ryan clicked the stop button and turned to me, his face grave. Well, he asked. She's clearly participating willingly, I said, my voice steady despite the storm brewing inside me. Even under the influence of who knows what. There's no basis for a kidnapping charge. And I didn't see Tessa in the video, so it's doubtful she knows the full extent of what's happening. But even if she did, she wouldn't talk. Ryan nodded. What's the plan then? We need to track her down, I said. Do you have any contacts in Los Angeles? You know I do, Ryan said. But I'm warning you, Ethan. If we find her, you're not delivering those divorce papers yourself. You're too close to this. Let Luke or me handle it. I can handle it, I said, my tone sharper than intended. No, you can't, Ryan snapped. I know you, Ethan. You're in pain, and if you go out there, you'll do something rash. Then I'll have to bail you out of jail. Stay put, or I'll revoke your license. Understand? I sighed, raising my hands in surrender. Fine, I'll behave. You better, Ryan said, his tone softening. Take a few days off. Relax. Consider yourself on vacation starting now. I can't do that, I protested. I've got a business to run. Everything's under control. That's an order, Ethan. Vacation starts now, Ryan said firmly. All right, I conceded. I'm on vacation. We shook hands, and I thanked Donna for the coffee before heading home. The thought of grabbing a beer crossed my mind, but I decided against it. That turned out to be a good call because the house phone rang just as I walked into the living room. Hello? I answered, recognizing Tessa's number on the caller ID. I hit the record button on the answering machine. Hi, Ethan. It's Tessa, she said. Yes, I recognize the number, I replied coolly. Just so you know, I'm recording this conversation. I hope that's okay. Of course, she said. If I were in your shoes, I'd probably do the same. So, what's on your mind? I asked. I just heard from Lyla, Tessa said, her tone cautious. She asked me to represent her interests in case you decide to file for divorce. Do you know where she is? I asked. She said she's in Miami right now, Tessa replied. but she mentioned she plans to move around and doesn't expect to return anytime soon. Miami, huh? I said, doubting her words but playing along. That's what she told me, Tessa confirmed. She also said you're likely to file for divorce. She's right, I said evenly. Divorce proceedings are already underway. When the papers are ready, send them to me, Tessa said. I'll email you my address. Will do, I assured her. Then I added, were you aware of her plans to leave me and pursue a career in adult films with Marco Diaz? No, Ethan, Tessa said, her voice tinged with surprise. I had no idea. I understand you may not think highly of me, but I want to be clear. I'm being sincere, Tessa said, her voice measured. I thought Lyla was just trying to provoke a reaction from you with her involvement with Marco. I didn't realize she planned to leave you for good. It was a shock when she told me. I bit back my initial response, but the bitterness slipped into my tone. Did you know about the medications he's been giving her? She hesitated. White powder and those euphoria pills, she admitted. I knew about the euphoria pills. We all took some that night, but I didn't see any white powder. You know what Marco does with the women he recruits, don't you? I pressed. He makes adult films, she replied quickly. I know he specializes in group videos and humiliation stuff. I also heard he's branching out with a new series featuring mature amateur women like Lyla. But I didn't know he was targeting her specifically. You're dodging my question, I said, my voice firm. Do you understand what he really does to these women? I'm not sure what you mean, she replied cautiously. Don't play dumb, Tessa, I snapped. He exploits them. He hooks them on drugs, bleeds them dry, and when they're no longer useful, he tosses them out onto the streets to fend for themselves. Is that what you want for your sister? Because that's where this is heading. How long do you think she'll last in that world? Is this a genuine concern, Ethan? Tessa asked, her tone sharp with suspicion. Oh, don't act so smug, I retorted. No matter how much I despise her now, I wouldn't wish that fate on anyone, not even you. Where's your concern for your sister? It's none of your business, but if it came to that, I'd take her in before letting her hit rock bottom, she shot back. Make sure she knows that, I said firmly. Because from what I've seen of Marco, she'll be lucky to last 5 years. Maybe less. You better have a spare room ready. I don't need you to worry about me, Ethan, Tessa said coldly. Just tell me what you want in the divorce. You'll find out soon enough, I replied. Very well, she said with an edge of finality. Do you want me to pass along a message to Lyla? No, I said flatly. I have nothing to say to her right now. Then I suppose we're done here, Tessa concluded. Once again, I'm sorry this happened. Send the divorce papers directly to me. All communication from now on will go through me. Goodbye, Ethan. She ended the call, and I stopped the recording on my answering machine. Immediately, I called Luke to relay Tessa's statements. She's representing her sister's interests right after enabling this disaster? Luke remarked, incredulous. That's a bit rich. Isn't it unethical? I asked. Not necessarily, Luke admitted, but it sure doesn't look good. We'll send Tessa a copy of the documents, but I still want to make an effort to locate Lyla and serve her in person. Too much risk that Tessa might misplace the papers or claim Lyla wasn't properly notified. Do you really think she'd stoop to that? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Oh, absolutely, Luke said with conviction. You'd be surprised at the stunts I've seen her pull. I'll talk to Ryan and see if we can pinpoint Lyla's location. If we can't find her, we'll have to resort to divorce by publication. What does that mean? I asked. If a spouse can't be located, we can publish the divorce notice in a newspaper, Luke explained. It has to run weekly for 4 weeks in a location where she's likely to see it. Since we suspect she's in the Los Angeles area, we'll publish locally and in the LA Times. And we'll still send a copy of the documents to Tessa, right? I clarified. Of course, Luke affirmed. But sending them to Tessa doesn't satisfy the legal requirement for notification. We discussed the plan further before ending the call. Afterward, I grabbed a quick snack, lit a cigarette, and eventually went to bed, though sleep didn't come easily. Over the following weeks, we tracked Lyla's ATM activity. Transactions suggested she was in the Long Beach area. Ryan's contacts in Los Angeles confirmed sightings of her at various nightclubs, where she was reportedly performing on stage. Pinning down her exact whereabouts proved challenging, but the evidence painted a clear picture. Lyla was embracing her new lifestyle. In the midst of this, I received a call from Claire Foster, Lyla's supervisor at the therapy clinic. "Ethan, I was calling to check on Lyla. She hasn't shown up for work in weeks. Is everything okay?" "Actually, Claire, Lyla's decided on a career change," I replied, my tone steady but laced with sarcasm. "A career change? What kind of career change?" Claire asked, clearly confused. "Haven't you heard? She's pursuing a career in adult filmmaking," I said bluntly. "She's currently in Southern California, chasing her dream." "You've got to be joking," Claire said, her voice stunned. "Unfortunately, I'm not," I said. "I doubt she'll be returning anytime soon." Claire was silent for a moment before saying, "Okay, I'll process her final paycheck and terminate her employment. Where should I send it?" "For now, you can mail it to me," I said. "I'll pass it on to her lawyer." "Got it," Claire said. "I'm sorry to hear this, Ethan. She'll be missed." "Thanks, Claire," I said before hanging up. When Lyla's paycheck arrived, I forwarded it to Tessa as promised. Whether she gave it to Lyla or not, I didn't care. My focus had shifted elsewhere. My sessions with Dr. Grace were proving invaluable. She was a skilled therapist, empathetic, insightful, and direct when needed. I'd feared she might blame me for Lyla's actions, but instead, she helped me understand that I wasn't at fault. By the end of the first month, I felt lighter, as though a weight had been lifted. My visits to the gym also contributed to my progress. With Eric's guidance, I dropped a few pounds and adopted a sustainable diet. For the first time in years, I started to see glimmers of my former self in the mirror. Meanwhile, Luke had been busy. He crafted a sharply worded divorce petition and began running it in the local newspaper and the LA Times, twice weekly for 4 weeks. As the 4th week of publication wrapped up, Luke sent Tessa a copy of the divorce petition. It didn't take long for her to react. She called Luke's office, demanding an urgent meeting with both of us. When we gathered in his conference room, her frustration was evident. "What does all this mean?" she snapped, waving the documents. "This isn't a divorce petition. It's an insult. A 75-25 property split with no alimony? What are you trying to accomplish here?" Luke, calm and composed, leaned back in his chair. "The real insult is what your client did to my client," he replied. "She abandoned her husband in a humiliating and public way, and my client believes this division is fair." "She hasn't even been served yet," Tessa shot back. "She didn't remove her belongings from the house, and you're trying to railroad this case." "That's because your client has been evading service in Los Angeles," Luke said evenly. "Since you refused to provide her address, we had no choice but to proceed with divorce by publication. The 4th and final notice has already been published." "This isn't over," Tessa threatened. "I'll contest it." "By all means," Luke said with a shrug. True to her word, she filed motions over the following weeks, none of which gained traction. She even managed to convince the court to mandate counseling sessions, a move that took me by surprise. "Counseling?" I asked Luke when he told me the news. "What's the point?" "Don't worry," Luke reassured me. "Judge Grant isn't a fan of betrayal, and he won't tolerate disobedience. Lyla likely won't show up, and when she doesn't, the judge will issue a bench warrant for her arrest." I nodded, though the idea of sitting through counseling felt like adding insult to injury. On the day of the session, I arrived at the appointed office on time. As expected, Lyla was a no-show. The counselor, Laura Mitchell, greeted me warmly. She'd worked with me years ago after I was injured in the line of duty. We spent the session catching up. I recounted the events leading up to this point, laying out the betrayal and how it had unraveled my life. "I take it reconciliation isn't an option?" she asked, her tone more observational than curious. "Not even a remote possibility," I replied. "Fair enough," she said. "I'll report Lyla's absence to the court. Best of luck, Ethan. It was good to see you again." As Luke predicted, Judge Grant was furious when he learned of Lyla's failure to appear. He issued a bench warrant for her arrest, valid for 5 years. While it wasn't an active search warrant, It meant she could be detained if stopped by law enforcement. Meanwhile, we continued monitoring her ATM transactions. Most activity centered around Long Beach, but occasional withdrawals in San Francisco and San Diego suggested she was moving frequently. Further digging revealed a series of short videos featuring her. Watching them was a gut-wrenching experience. Each one was worse than the last, filled with degrading scenarios centered on humiliation and betrayal. Knowing this was what she had intended for me made my stomach turn. Finally, the court date arrived. I met Luke at the courthouse, and we walked in together. The room was sparse, with only a few other cases on the docket. Tessa sat alone at her table. Lyla, predictably, was nowhere to be seen. When our case was called, we approached the bench. Judge Grant wasted no time addressing Tessa. "Where is your client?" he asked, his tone sharp. "She's unwell," Tessa replied, her voice clipped. "Unwell?" the judge repeated, raising an eyebrow. "What does that mean?" "She's working and couldn't make it," Tessa added hesitantly. "Working?" Judge Grant's irritation was palpable. "She's an adult film actress. Are there no breaks in her schedule? Does she think her job is more important than this divorce?" "She simply couldn't make it, Your Honor," Tessa said, her voice faltering under his scrutiny. Judge Grant sighed, clearly exasperated. "Very well. In light of her absence, I am prepared to finalize the divorce decree today. But we still need time to file additional motions," Tessa protested. "I've seen all I need to see," the judge said firmly. "This court retains significant discretion in matters of property division. On one hand, we have a decorated former police officer who risked his life in service to his community. On the other, we have a woman who abandoned her marriage to pursue a depraved lifestyle. Ms. Blake, I am also deeply concerned about your role in this case. While the State Bar assures me there were no ethical breaches, you have skirted dangerously close to the line. I suggest you exercise caution in the future." With a decisive bang of his gavel, he continued, "I hereby grant the plaintiff's petition as submitted. Best of luck, Mr. Wright, and thank you for your service." I turned to Luke, stunned. Did we just win? Luke grinned and extended his hand. "You're officially a free man. Congratulations, Ethan." Tessa approached us as we gathered our things. Her expression was neutral, but her words carried an edge. "Congratulations, Ethan. I hope you find solace in your revenge." I shook her hand, keeping my face expressionless. "Thank you, Tessa. It's been a long road." As she walked away, I felt the weight of the last few months begin to lift. The nightmare was finally over. "No, I'm not content," I confessed, my voice carrying the weight of truth. "Happiness has eluded me for quite some time." I reached into my briefcase, pulling out a DVD and a cashier's check, and handed them to Tessa. "You once said I should let you know if I had a message for Lyla. Well, this is it. Feel free to watch it if you want. I don't care. The check is for her share of our account. I closed it late last night." "I'll make sure she gets it," Tessa murmured, eyeing the DVD. "But what's on this?" "Nothing extraordinary," I replied, though my words concealed the truth. In reality, the DVD held more than just a message. It was closure. The day before, I dragged a 50-gallon drum into my backyard and set up a camera on a tripod. With the camera rolling, I filled the drum with all of Lyla's abandoned belongings. Her $2,500 wedding gown, every photograph of her, and countless trinkets she'd collected over the years. Even the wedding portrait that once hung above our bed, shattered, went into the drum. I doused the contents with lighter fluid and lit the match. As flames consumed the remnants of our past, I turned to the camera. "Lyla," I began, my tone steady. "There was a time when I would have taken a bullet for you. I loved you with everything I had, and I envisioned growing old by your side. But you had other plans. That future is gone, just like everything in this barrel." I paused, the fire crackling behind me. "I've seen glimpses of your work online, and I can't shake the feeling that you intended this for me. But it won't happen. Don't ask for friendship. Friends don't hurt each other the way you hurt me. And don't expect forgiveness. It's not coming. I hope you wake up and see reality before it's too late. Goodbye, Lyla." I walked away, leaving the camera to record the flames as they reduced her belongings to ash. After that, life moved forward. I revamped the house, removing every trace of Lyla. I continued my sessions with grace and stuck to my gym routine, embracing the new diet and cutting out cigarettes. A few months later, I stepped on the scale, down to 84 kilograms. I still had work to do, but for the first time in years, I felt good. Yet, something was missing. Companionship. Fate intervened on an ordinary day at the grocery store. Distracted, I accidentally bumped into someone. "I'm so sorry," I said, looking up to see the most enchanting smile I'd ever encountered. "It's okay," she said, her voice warm. For a moment, I was captivated, forgetting to breathe. "I'm Ethan Wright," I said, noticing her bare ring finger. "Megan Clark," she replied, smiling again. We struck up a conversation. To my surprise, I found the courage to ask her to dinner, and even more surprising, she accepted. Over dinner, I learned that Megan was a widowed physician. Her husband and young son had tragically died in a car accident years ago, returning from a camping trip. Offering my condolences, I shared my own story. She listened intently, her expression soft with understanding. When I mentioned my diabetes and the effects of my medications, she nodded knowingly. "I've treated similar cases," she said. "Bring your prescriptions to my office. Let's see what we can adjust." Following her advice, I scheduled an appointment and brought everything. She was stunned by the sheer number of medications. After some tests, she recommended adjustments, and the results were immediate. Megan emphasized the importance of diet and exercise, which further accelerated my progress. The first time we were together, I felt like a new man. It was the first time in over 2 years that I felt truly content. Waking up next to Megan, I realized I couldn't let this happiness slip away. When I proposed, she showered me with kisses, tears streaming down her cheeks. After our wedding, we sold our homes, combined finances, and bought a new house in a fresh development. Starting anew was vital for both of us. A year later, Megan gave birth to twins, Noah and Emma. Parenthood brought a joy I'd never imagined. Watching the twins grow, I felt a profound sense of fulfillment. Years later, a knock on the door interrupted our routine. I opened it to find Tessa, looking older and worn. "Ethan, good to see you," she said. "Likewise, Tessa," I replied, inviting her in. I introduced her to Megan and the kids before asking, "What brings you here?" "This is about Lyla," she said, her voice somber. "You were right about Marco." "What do you mean?" I asked, curiosity tinged with dread. "It took time, but he exploited her just as you predicted. She ended up on the streets, doing anything for her next fix. She confessed it all. Eventually, she hit rock bottom. A few months ago, she was found unconscious in an alley and taken to rehab." I sighed, bracing myself for the rest. "And now?" "She's battling cancer," Tessa revealed. "Her prognosis isn't good." The weight of her words settled over me. "You remember what I said, don't you?" I asked quietly. "I swore I wouldn't let her reach this point." "What happened?" I asked, my voice tinged with surprise. "We lost contact about 6 years ago," Tessa admitted. "The authorities in Los Angeles reached out to me recently, and I flew out to see her. She's not doing well, Ethan." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said softly. "What do you need from me?" "She wants closure," Tessa explained. "She wants to see you one last time. I understand your feelings toward her, and me, but I implore you to find the compassion to grant her this final wish." The request caught me off guard. Tessa, of all people, was asking me for a favor. I turned to Megan, searching her face for guidance. Her expression mirrored the concern I felt. "What do you think?" I asked her. Tessa spoke before Megan could answer. "It's dire," she interjected. "The cancer has spread extensively. The doctors said that if they'd caught it earlier, they might have had a chance, but it's too advanced now. They've given her a few months, maybe just hours." Megan's hand rested lightly on my arm. "Tessa's right, dear. Lyla needs closure. And deep down, you know you need it too." I took a deep breath, letting their words sink in. "All right," I said finally. "I'll go see her." "I'll come with you," Megan offered immediately. Grateful for her support, I nodded. We quickly arranged for Carla, our neighbor's teenage daughter, to babysit the twins. Once she arrived, Megan and I followed Tessa to the hospice. The moment we entered Lyla's room, I was struck by the sight before me. She was barely recognizable. Her once vibrant face was pale and sallow, her body frail and thin. Tubes protruded from her arms, and the beeping of monitors punctuated the silence. It was as if all the radiance she once possessed had been drained away. As I approached her bedside, her eyes fluttered open. They locked onto mine, and a tear slipped down her cheek. "Ethan," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "Is it really you? You look so good." "Yes, Lyla, it's me," I confirmed, my voice steady. "Oh, Ethan," she choked, her words punctuated by quiet sobs. "I'm so sorry. I messed up so badly. I ruined everything. I know you said you'd never forgive me, but please, I'm begging you. It hurts so much. Please forgive me." I glanced at Megan. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears, and she gave me an encouraging nod. I knew what I needed to do, even though it felt impossibly hard. Pulling a chair closer, I sat down and took Lyla's hand in mine. Her skin felt cold and fragile. "It's all right, Lyla," I said softly. "I forgive you." The words seemed to shatter something inside her. She burst into tears, clutching at my shirt with her free hand. I leaned forward, embracing her as she cried into my shoulder. The raw emotion in that moment was overwhelming, and for a brief moment, the years of anger and pain seemed to dissolve. A nurse entered quietly, checking Lyla's chart before injecting something into her fore. "This will help her rest," she explained softly before leaving the room. Lyla's breathing slowed, and her eyes began to close as the medication took effect. I gently adjusted her head on the pillow and stepped back. "Thank you for coming," Tessa said, her voice barely audible. "You're welcome," I replied with a small nod. "How long will you stay?" I asked her. "I'll stay until the end," Tessa murmured. "I've arranged to work remotely. There won't be a memorial service. It's what she wanted." I hesitated before asking, "What happened to Marco?" Tessa retrieved a folded newspaper clipping from her purse. "After he discarded Lyla, he replaced her with another girl," she said quietly. "Her husband didn't take it well. He killed Marco." I unfolded the article and scanned it. "It says disfigured," I noted, looking at Tessa for clarification. "Yes," she confirmed. "Her husband beat him to death. Witnesses saw him leaving the warehouse. He was acquitted by reason of temporary insanity." "I can't say I'm surprised," I murmured. "I felt the same urge myself." Tessa sighed, her face heavy with regret. "I'm sorry, Ethan. For everything. For what happened to Lyla. For what I contributed to." I didn't respond immediately, but her sincerity seemed genuine. "Thank you," I said quietly. She shifted uncomfortably before continuing. "That video you gave me all those years ago, it changed me. At the time, I didn't realize the depth of pain betrayal could cause. I thought extramarital affairs were just about gratification. But seeing your pain, understanding the cost, it changed me. I'm not the same woman I was back then." "I'm glad to hear that, Tessa," I said sincerely. She offered a faint smile. "Take care of yourself, Ethan." Turning to Megan, she added, "And take care of him." "You can count on it," Megan replied, embracing Tessa briefly. We left the hospice in silence. As we drove home, Megan reached over and rested her hand on mine. "Are you all right?" she asked gently. "Yes," I said after a moment, squeezing her hand. "I think I finally am." The road stretched out ahead of us, and for the first time in years, it felt like a road to peace.